Yankees had won it, Bobby Thompson had done it, and Yogi read the comics all the while. Rock and roll was being born, marijuana we would scorn. So down on the corner the national pastime went on trial. We're talking baseball, Klazuski, Campanella, talking baseball.
Hello, whaleheaders. For this episode of the OOTP tutorials, I'm going to go through the individual player profiles, and I'll do this for pitchers and then hitters, and I'll give you an opportunity to see some of the ratings and some of the other information that's on an individual player profile. So just looking at the picture, you see a face gen of the player with the cap. You see player's name, number, age, just basic information, salary. You see his personal details. You see his salary again, when he signed through, what his national popularity is, what his morale is, what his expectation is for the upcoming season, and how much major league service time. Further down, you have more information about his popularity and morale. It'll say, his health status, what his injury rating is, his rest status. It'll say whether he's scheduled to pitch yesterday, whether he pitched a few days before, and this will tell you his pitch count. So how the rest works in OOTP, unlike Dynasty, it's cumulative. So you can throw a certain number of pitches in one day and be tired, or throw a certain number of pitches. Each player has a stamina rating, and the stamina rating is how many pitches, that's the percentage, but the stamina rating is, this is his rating, and it's rated based on 100 pitches. Okay, and there's different rules, of course. Okay, so you have all the stats, so this will get populated with our old stats before the season starts, actually before the off season, and then our stats will get populated as we play along. Now here's the basic pitcher ratings. As I mentioned in the last video, stuff is basically a pitcher's ability to strike batters out. The higher the stuff, the more batters he's going to strike out. Now stuff is important for starters. It's even more important for relievers, depending on what the role you're in. If you want a reliever that's going to be able to come in and get that big strikeout when you've got runners at second and third, you want him to have a high stuff rating. And after I go through the basics on this page, I might show you another picture or two. Okay, the second rating for pitchers is the movement rating. And right now you can see, as I said before, 50 is average in our league. It's set to our league, so it's not real Major League Baseball. All these ratings would be higher in real Major League Baseball, but because we have 18 and not 30 teams, our replacement level is lower, and the average is, the replacement level is higher, and the average pitcher or average player is better. So he's got low movement, and what movement impacts is home runs. So if a player has a high movement, he'll give up less home runs. That's basically it. Now control, as you can see, Greinke's got a well above average control. He's 65, which puts him in an all-star caliber player. So he was not going to walk a lot. That's what the control does. Now, each pitcher is rated for his individual pitch type. Now, how these go together is the better your overall ratings, the higher your stuff. So if you have really good pitches to go together, then you have better stuff. Greinke has a slightly above average fastball, and if we look over here, you can see velocity. It'll tell you what his velocity is. He's got a slightly above average curveball that has to potentially be even better. 70s, each 10 points for the scouting rating is one standard deviation away. So a player that's a 50 is average, a 60 is one standard deviation of players away, a 70 is two standard deviations, which means he's about 68% of the players in that, so he's at the end of that. And then 3 standard deviations is an 80, and that's top of the line. That's top, what is it, 96, 90, I forget what the actual percentage is for 3rd standard deviation. Okay, so slider, he's got a really good slider, and he's got a top changeup. Each pitcher has an overall rating, and he has a potential rating. Greinke's already 34, so his potential is he's already reached his potential. If the player was 22 or 23, and we can see that if we go to Severino, Luis Severino, you can see, well, he's a 70 overall, which is a top. That's an ace quality pitcher, 70 potential. His stuff's a little bit different. He's a 70 fastball, and that's 96 to 98 miles an hour. His movement, he's a 50, so he's got average movement, so he'll give up typically an average number of home runs. His control is slightly above average. His fastball, 70 with a potential for 75, which is pretty great. 65 for a slider, and he's got an 80 out of 80, an 80-80 changeup. So that means he can't get any better changeup than that. As you can see with his pitcher ratings, there's also a ground ball, fly ball tendency. Now that's going to impact how many, whether he's going to give ground balls, fly balls, because the game is centered a little bit around dips a little bit. Because if you look, you don't see any kind of rating for doubles and triples. That's because doubles and triples are generated by the pitcher card with the batter card. What the pitchers do is the pitchers prevent strikeout guys. They you don't see it on here, but it'll impact the guy's BABIP, his batting average on balls in play, and it'll cut down on home runs and cut down on walks. Okay, so the game buys into the dips theory, and the dips theory is basically that for most pitchers, they can impact home runs, they can impact strikeouts, and it can impact walks. And most of the other batted balls, they don't have a lot of influence on. Some subsequent research to the original research showed that there's actually, depending on whether it's a fly ball or a ground ball, they do have some kind of an impact. And in this game, so if you have a ground ball, fly ball, I don't have any of the actual differences in the ratings, but I'm assuming that if you have a ground ball pitcher, he's going to be more impacted by he's going to be able to actually impact the batting average on balls in play, so that the number of hits that a player, his batters that face him, reach. So here's stamina. Stamina 65, so he's better than average on stamina. So that means he's going to be able to throw more pitches, and that's what dictates fatigue in this game, is how many pitches you throw. It's a pitch by pitch game. It's not like Dynasty where it's number of batters, innings pitched, none of that. It depends on how many pitches you throw. So if a guy's pitching a good game, he's not walking guys, he's going to tend to go a little bit deeper in the games. And then how good he is at holding runners. As you can see, he's a 55 on the hold runners. Positional rating, he's an 80, so he's a really good fielder. They have some of his batting stats, and they also have his personality rating, which he's an average Joe. We'll go back to Greinke, and you'll see with Greinke, he never shows any lack of effort and has a great knowledge of the game. He's well respected by his teammates. He has a high greed, which will impact when he wants to be a free agent. He wants his cash. He has a high work ethic and a high intelligence. High work ethic is good for a player's development. If a guy works hard, he's going to develop faster. He has a low leadership, so he's not very much of a leader, so he's not going to help in the clubhouse. Now this is the basic profile page that has the basic information, but I can go to a ratings page, and now there's even more ratings available that we can look at. Okay, there's the defensive ratings, and every player is rated at every defensive position. Batting ratings, and I'll go over that with the batter. Okay, The position ratings is a guy can have be rated at multiple different positions, and this is an overall rating, so it takes into account errors, range, and stuff like that. If you come over here, it's the same ratings as we saw on the other one, except there's a breakdown versus lefties and righties. So Greinke is pretty much even up on both sides. He doesn't have a big split. One of the things that impacts the split roll is the type of, let's see where it says it. It says it over here. It has arm slot. And arm slot is basically, what that impacts is how you are against lefties and righties. Pitchers that are sidearm are generally going to be specialists. Somebody that drops down on the low and they're right-handed is going to be tougher on righties than he will be on lefties. It's common sense. It's like regular baseball. Like I've said many times, the best thing that you can do with this game is to just treat it as real baseball. If you think of it as real baseball and you make decisions based on how you would make a decision if you had a real team, you're going to do okay. So again, there's current and potential. Young players usually, we saw with Severino, it's not always the case, haven't reached their potential yet, and they can get better. And that's particularly true in season, because during the season, players can evolve, they can change, and it can be negatively, which is often because of injury. It can be positively, in that the player's just getting better, refining his pitches, becoming a better pitcher, and stuff like that. Okay, so we've already gone over these ratings. As you can see, that there's a little bit more in depth. If I go back to the profile, we can also see, his batting stats, his pitching stats, fielding stats, his history. So if he's been traded, he gets signed by another team, stuff like that. Right here, I go back to the profile, and then we have his contract information. You would have his roster status information, what he's expecting. He expects a spot in the starting rotation. When he becomes a free agent, of course, that's when he can do that. His availability, he's available. That's something that you can set to let other teams know the guy's available. How much service time? He has 6 years and 176 days. So once they turn to the new year, the 176 days from the past year will get added to his major league service time, so he will have 7 years. Okay, time on a secondary roster, that's the time that once you get added to the 40-man, that can be different than his time on the major league. So when a guy gets options, he'll still be accruing time on the secondary roster, but he won't be accruing time on the major league service time. Okay, Rule 5 eligibility, it'll have that on there. Okay, how many options? You'll have 3 option years, which means if he's optioned more than a specific number of days, and I can't remember the days now, the player uses up an option. He can be optioned 3 years in his career. Once he's out of options, okay, once he used up those 3 years, and all the players start off at 0, so you'll have some time to get used to the idea. Once you use up those 3 years, if you want to send the player down off the active roster to AAA or AA, he can become a free agent. And he has arbitration status, and if there's any free agent compensation available, then it'll also be here. Okay. When you have, Greinke's going to become a free agent, and this is a test copy of the league, so. But starting next year, you'll be able to negotiate with the player right up until free agency. So if I click on negotiate extension with him, he's telling me I'd be more than willing to extend my contract with the team. I'm seeking the following terms: a 5-year major league contract with an average annual salary of $21.6 million, totaling $108. And he's happy right now with his negotiating. Okay. At this point, this is where you can make your offer. You can have you have an option. Well, for him, it's only a major league contract. So he's already passed 6 years. You can put how many years you want to have for him. What I'm going to do is, because this is a test, and I know I can't sign him anyway, I'm going to lowball him. And you'll get initial response when you do this, but you won't get, when you're in the online league, you might have to wait until all the offers are processed before you get it. I haven't done that yet, so I can't really tell you for sure. But you can offer, if it's a multi-year contract, you can offer an opt-out. You can offer a no-trade clause. You can promise a specific role. Now, if you promise a role and the player does not end up getting that role, you tell a guy he's going to be a starting pitcher, then you get somebody better. He's going to be unhappy, and he could be a problem in your clubhouse, which could impact how well your players play. Now, it's not going to be a huge impact. It's not going to turn you from if you get an unhappy clubhouse, it's not going to turn you from a 95-win team to a 65-win team, but it might knock off a few games off your team, which could cost you the pennant. Okay? There's incentives, minimum innings for, you can have a bonus. You can, if there's a bonus, like when you're offering a minor league free agent, you can offer him a bonus. We're going to have mandatory bonuses for free agents, so you'll have to offer them something in the minor leagues. Major leagues, it'll be their major league contract. You'll negotiate that. But for minor leaguers that are unsigned, if they don't have a minimum request, you'll have to pay them something, and I haven't figured it out yet, about something like $50,000 minimum bonus. So this way, if you want to sign 10 minor leaguers, it's going to cost you $500,000. More than likely, that'll be the figure, but we'll see. I've got to look at things. We're going to at least do that for the first year. After the first year, we might decide to scrap that, but in a transition, because we have teams with such varying amount of minor leaguers, I think it would be good to at least have that. So if a team has 5 minor leaguers, all of a sudden wants to have 100 minor leaguers, well, he's going to have to pay something. He can't just get all cheap minor leaguers. Okay, so you would put in this offer, and he's not going to be happy with this offer. So you can ask for a response, and he's you want me to sign for that? It's a little insulting. Here's what I feel I'm worth, and he gives you the same contract. And in the game where you're playing against the AI, you can ask for multiple games. In the online, again, I haven't tested it yet, but I don't think that you can do that. If you do it, and he does keep giving you responses, it's only going to make him unhappy. See, his current negotiating mood isn't that happy, so I'm going to go back to 1 year. $10 million, and this wasn't really meant to be. It wasn't going to be a free agent example, but why don't I just do this quick? I'm going to ask for another response. I'm sorry, but I'm not interested in discussing this right now. I'm not in the right mood to continue negotiations. And from my experience, once a player says that, he might not negotiate with you the rest of the offseason. Some players, I have seen players where I didn't intentionally lowball them, and I just didn't offer them enough money, and they said they don't want to discuss the contract anymore. And then late in February, before the spring training started, they were once again willing to negotiate. Okay, so I'm going to get out of this page. Oh, and I'm not sure if you noticed that. When you're in the negotiating window, it tells you what's your budget, how much cash you have, and what your projected payroll is, what your other expenses, so how much you have available for an extension, to sign extensions. Okay. You can also, I don't know if you noticed that, but you can get, when you're on the contract, you can go into the guy's scouting history. And I played through the 18 season, so that information doesn't get totally wiped out. But as you can see, there was scouting reports done. This is recently by the OSA, which is the Outside the Park scouting agency, which everybody shares that one. Everybody gets those same ratings. And then you get your individual scouting director's ratings. And you can see the OOTP, the potentials. It says that he has a potential for his fastball to get a little better. And all the other ratings are the same. This was another scouting report that was done on 10/17/2018 by my scout. This is those are by my head scouts, and they have slightly different ratings. Okay. So I did my original scouting, and then I believe I did I requested a recalculation of the scouting reports, and as you can see, they were different. And that is why you want to spend money on your scouting and have a decent scouting director. Okay, we're going to go back to Greinke's profile. I already did the scouting. As you can see, it'll graph this as time goes on, and it'll graph, you'll be able to see what his overall and potential ratings improve. His injury history, he hasn't been hurt. Nobody's hurt in our game right now. This is the news page where it has information. This will be something that you'll be able to see online. Okay, this will show up online, so you won't have to actually be in the game to see this information. This will be available right on his player page. This is something called baseball cards that get generated when players do certain things. I'll show you those another time. So this is basically, that's the pitcher information. So I'm going to go to my player list, and I'm going to get let's go with Dustin Pedroia. Okay, Pedroia, so they have the basic ratings, the contact, gap power, home run power, eye discipline, and avoid Ks. This is the ratings that the player uses. Contact is basically a combination. It's a proxy for batting average. So the higher the contact rating, the higher the player's batting average. 50 is average. So the average major league hits 260. In our league, okay, a guy who's a 50 will hit about 260. In our league, and I'll try to come up with some estimates to try to help you with this. But the 60 is probably a guy that hits about 280. Right, that's right around what Pedroia hits. He's got gap power. Gap power is doubles and triples power. So you basically get a rating. Speed comes into play on that. So if a guy's a 40 gap power, Pedroia does not. He's below average, and he's not going to hit a lot of doubles and triples. It's going to be below average. Home run power 40-40. I believe an average major league player hits around 16 home runs. So a guy who's a 50 home run power is going to hit about 10, about 15, 20 home runs, somewhere in there. The eye discipline, that's walks. The higher the rating, the more he walks. Avoid Ks is basically the ability to put the bat on the ball. So the higher the guys avoid K, the less he'll strike out. As you can see, Pedroia, well above average for avoiding the K. Okay, then it has position ratings. Most players are rated. They're rated at every position. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be able to play the position well. See, Pedroia is 65, which is an above average player, but at shortstop he's at 25. So if you put him over to second base, over to shortstop, he's going to be well below average at shortstop. But each player, these are his infield range, infield error, infield arm, and turn it over play. So all players will get these ratings, whether they play the position or not. He's got a below average arm, so you could put him at shortstop, and if you play him there and say play him in spring training, he's going to get experience there. This rating might go up. He still will probably never be he's never going to be a 65, because although he doesn't make many errors, right? This is a 20/80 scale, so he's, doesn't make a lot of errors, and he has slightly above average range. His arm's not going to be good enough. It says his personality. He has a great relationship with the fans. Fans love him. He's a leader. So he's a leader in the clubhouse. He's going to help out in the clubhouse. He's loyal. He's a loyal player. He doesn't move around. He likes to stay with the same team, and he's got a high work ethic, which are all good qualities if you want to sign a guy to a contract. Okay, here's his contract information. Same thing as the pitchers. Scouting, you have multiple scouting reports, just like the other players. Injury history. Baseball News Network, which will be on the website, and this will be information that will show up there. So that's basically it. Now I want to show you, before I go, I'm going to show you the underlying ratings, and this is something that you can see in commissioner mode. Now I'm going to ask guys that when we start our season, I'm going to set things up so I don't see the ratings. I have two different logins. I have one login for me when I'm doing my manager stuff, and I have another login for the commissioner, and it's Kennesaw Landis is the commissioner, and he'll be able to see this stuff, but I won't be able to see this stuff when I'm under my baseball thing. And I'm not going to look at this. This is something that's the underlying ratings of the game. I can't even see it. So if I click on the editor, I can't even see it because I'm logged in as Jimmy Furtado. So let me move over just to show you how this works. Okay, so when you're in the commissioner mode, because I can go in and fix guys or something, if something happens and I have to do something with somebody, like when I can create scouts, and when I create the scouts, I can go in and modify the underlying ratings. This is all based on, basically 100 is average. It's all based on stats. The BABIP, from my things I've learned, BABIP, avoid Ks, and power are all going to the contact because it hits average. The less Ks you have, the more times you're going to get the bat on a ball, so you're going to get more opportunities to hit, and if you get more opportunities to hit, you're going to get more hits, right? Power, if you hit home runs aren't counted into BABIP, batting average on balls in play. Then the more power you have, the better. And in this, like I said, in this, 100 is average. Okay, and you have the ratings, and it'll tell you in a neutral, modern Major League environment what kind of batting average she would have. Now, again, I suggest that people don't look at this. Once we're in the online game, once I put the new ratings, as soon as I start playing some exhibition games, all these underlying ratings may change. That's where the development comes in. As the players develop and they get better or worse, these actual ratings will change. So a player is not going to be exactly the same. Now, what can happen? A guy can get a hamstring injury, and a hamstring injury might impact him and impact his defense. So his defense might go down for a while. Once he's 100%, again, his ratings can go back up. So a guy could start off, let's say for the sake of argument, he's a 50 on defense, and he has a hamstring injury, and it knocks him off for a few games. And when he comes back, he's still not 100%, which is something that can happen in this game. Right? He's still not 100%. His range might drop. He might go from a 50 to a 45. And you could play a month where he's a 50 and a 45, and all of a sudden the game determines that he's healthy and fully healthy again. And once he's fully healthy, his range might go back up to 50. And if he plays a lot at the position, and he could go up to a possibly a 55 for the stretch drive. But then all those ups and downs, all the development will be thrown out the window when we have the new game next year, because, again, we're tethered to real life. So if a guy continues to do well in real life, he's going to do well in our game. Okay, so there's information here, pictures you can change. Again, this is something that we don't want to see because, you know, in Dynasty, one of the things that guys like is having the absolute numbers. But the absolute numbers, that gives you the guy's true talent level. True talent level is how good is the guy inherently. The thing is, most players in real Major League Baseball, nobody's true talent level stays the same all the time. Guys are better, worse, they work out more one off season, they're healthier one year, they're just cold, they just get bad luck, they're not playing well. It goes up and down. Okay, that's real life. And GMs in real life do not know what a guy's true talent level is. Well, we're not going to know either. What we're going to know is we're going to see the scouting ratings. And as I've mentioned before, the scouting ratings are dependent on the quality of your scout, how much money you put into your scouting department, and for our cases is what we know about the players ourselves. Those of us who know Major League players better should be able to scout players and pick players better than guys who don't. Okay? And that's the way it is in real life. That's much more realistic, and I think it's a better game to have some ambiguity in there. See, we can have two GMs in the game, have different scouting directors, different budgets. Our scouts, the OSA numbers are going to be exactly the same. So if I'm there and Roger looks at his guys, the OSA ratings are going to be the same for both of us. Okay? But my scouts might say that this guy is better than the other guy. Now, for the Major League players, for the most part, the Major League players, you should know those players yourself. You should be able to have an idea, okay, how did this guy do last year? How did he do the year before? How did he do the year before that? Because the ratings when we start the season, when the new season, the ratings come out in March, are estimates of how good the player is when the season starts. And this is unlike some of these arcade games. This is all done with statistics and actual scouting. This isn't based on physical attributes. This is based on statistical analysis combined with scouting. Okay, so they'll be looking at like the contact, batting average on balls in play. How did the guy actually do in the last few years in batting average on balls in play? And it's based on projections, and the projections, right, are an estimate of how good the player is at this point in time going forward. And the projections are mainly based on the previous season. So if a guy had a really good season the year before, his ratings are going to be better than they were 2 years ago. Okay, so it's primarily the past season. It's if we're going to use percentages, it'll be something like 66% or 60% the past season, 25% the previous season, and what would that leave? 60 and 10% the season before. Okay, with an addition on how people age. So a guy who's not a good player, I mean he's an old player, he's going to be projected to get worse, right? Because most old players get worse. If he's a young player and he's, say, 23 years old, most young players at 23 are going to get better. So they'll add a little bit of a projection in there. But what this is the ratings are for current. It's just like a GM would be picking his team for the major leagues. When we do our scouting in the off season, we're going to do our scouting based on stats. When the stats come out in October, each of us will have our own process. What I'll do this year is I'm going to release some of the stats from the season, stats that mimic some of the ratings in the game, so you'll be able to look at those ratings, and I'll give you 3 years of stats, and you can do what you want with them. I'll put them in Excel sheets, and you can do your scouting. After this year, you'll be on your own. But you might want to scout different ways. You might think that you want to look at batting average and on base, and that will be a viable and effective way to scout too. As long as you understand how those ratings are, because the ratings that are in this game are set up to mimic and produce the stats that reflect the player's talent. Okay? All right, so I'm coming up at 32 minutes now, so this is basically all the player information that's available. They'll be batting, all the players' stats, batting splits and game log information and batters versus pitchers and streaks. All that stuff will be available. Career batting. This will actually be populated with the Whalehead stats from the last 6 years. But you'll have all this information on individual players. You can look in the aggregate, and like in the previous episode for the tutorial, that you could be able to compare players on an aggregate level. You'll be able to compare players statistically, and you'll be able to look into players individually. I hope this was informative to you, and I'm going to continue working on these. The next tutorial should be on just to give you a small preview, on advancing the season so that you can get into maybe practicing with one of the quick starts. All right, well, I hope this gave you something useful.